Before I start, I want to say that if anyone has any questions regarding this video, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer it as best as I can. Taking God's name in vain is very popular in this generation. These words may be used to express shock, happiness, and amazement. Many often say them without thinking, and I often see them on the internet or hear them when I'm with friends. Maybe I have been taught differently than you have, but what I believe is that saying God's name in a disrespectful way is wrong. This doesn't mean we need to be superstitious about saying God's name. Swearing falsely, or really using his name with no respect when it doesn't belong in the context, isn't something to play around with. When I hear this happen, I sometimes think about how sad Jesus is when people mock his name. How would you like it if someone took your name and made up a bunch of words to make fun of you, and then everyone started using them? You may be wondering where in the Bible it says this. I'll show you some verses that specifically tell you what I've summarized here. By the way, for anyone who's wondering, I got most of these verses at openbible.info, but I looked them up in my Bible to get the translation I wanted. The first verse is found in Exodus 20, verse 7. This is actually the part in the Bible where God gave his 10 commandments to the Israelites in the wilderness. I will read the verse for you. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. This was actually the third commandment out of 10. One verse that I particularly like for the subject is Matthew 12, verses 36 to 37. But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. Another version describes them as careless words. This doesn't mean if you say something that you know is wrong, you have to be scared your whole entire life for your punishment. If you admit you messed up and you tell God you're sorry, he forgives you lovingly and washes away your sin. Psalms 103 verse 12 tells us, As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. Anyways, back to the verse in Matthew. Now that we've agreed that taking the Lord's name is wrong, we know it's not just a rule you're supposed to follow. You and God will know what words you have said. It's between the two of you to work it out. Okay, next verse. I decided to read for you from Leviticus 19, verse 12. For this verse, I decided to look it up in the Message translation to make it simpler to understand. Here it is. Don't swear falsely using my name, violating the name of your God. I am God. As you can see, swearing falsely with God's name isn't something to be taken lightly. He is God, the creator of heaven and earth. What words can you use to replace taking God's name in vain? As I mentioned before, when in shock or surprise, people usually resort to using the Lord's name to express their feelings. I would suggest using other words like, oh my goodness, or wow, to express strong feelings instead of saying other words that really aren't the best. What if you're surrounded by people who misuse the name of God? What if you don't like it when they say it? You could either kindly ask them to please stop, giving a reasonable answer when they ask you why, or you could just be a witness by showing them how to do better. When my mom was a kid, her neighbor used to take the Lord's name in vain a lot. He would say it over and over again, cursing at every problem he had. But over time, he noticed that neither my mom nor her family would ever misuse God's name, and from then on, whenever he was around them, he wouldn't say such words. Isn't that awesome? Just by staying quiet when someone else is being disrespectful, you can be a witness to them. In conclusion, taking the Lord's name in vain is personally something I never want to resort to. Capitalizing Jesus' different names when writing them is also a sign of respect, and something I would recommend doing as well. If you need help to break a habit of using God's name, ask him to help you. He's always there.